Hi, I'm Tristan Rowland, the principal of our agency. This video is to help you understand new legislation that is coming in on August 1st around the seller's disclosure statement. Now, this is something we haven't had before in Queensland, and it's a very significant change, both for sellers and for buyers, but particularly for sellers, it poses a lot of risks and obviously delays the sales if it's not handled properly. So we've done a lot of research over the last few months, and I wanted to cover off on this today to how we're not only supporting our clients, but protecting them going forward. So the government's idea a few years ago was to provide a seller's disclosure statement, which we agree with. There should be a lot more disclosure there. However, the way it's been handled could be done better in my opinion. So there's a few big takeaways and a few things we need to do, and I'll cover off on them today. Number one, a seller cannot sell their property without this form, but more importantly, they can't even get a contract of sale without it. So as agents, we can be penalised, and the owner can be penalised if we don't present the disclosure on top of the contract. So when we get an offer from someone, even if it's prior to market or off market, we can't get that contract anymore without this form. Now, that's frustrating in a sense, but this is where it gets quite silly. These forms can take 2 to 3 weeks to prepare if not done correctly through the correct lawyer with the right searches. So we're recommending Andrew Weldon Solicitors. We've done a lot of research over the last few months in what to do with these, and we've actually done a few test runs through other services that are providing it, and scarily, these forms have come back non-compliant. So Andrew Weldon Solicitors we've used for a very long time, but they have got this on lock. Now, people say to me, well, what's the difference between lawyer A and lawyer B? There's one firm that are doing it for $899, and when we got the test form back, it was completely non-compliant. We've had another one that was quoting $1,000, and again, completely non-compliant. Now, people say, well, what does non-compliant mean? The buyer, under this legislation, can terminate your contract of sale right up to the day of settlement, even if you're unconditional, if this form is not done correctly. And in 20 years, we haven't really had a case where a buyer can do that. This is a very significant piece of legislation. So there's costings involved, and we'll explain that. The biggest part of this form is there are a lot of searches to do, and government searches. Now, I can run through them, and I'll quickly run off the list now. Your title search, a registered plan search, Department of Transport search, things like main roads, is there going to be a resumption, is there going to be a freeway coming across, etc. Contaminated land search, like have you had cows in the backyard or a service station, which obviously a lot of these questions are no, but it still needs to be done. A tree order search, like are there any orders to demolish trees or remove trees or protect trees. Heritage search, so heritage listings, so you're not a heritage listed property or there's no heritage restrictions around it, which again, these are pretty rare, but occasionally they come up. A council inspection of records. Now this is a big one, and the reason why it's big is because the council can have an 8 to 12 day turnaround on getting these records back unless you put an urgent search in. Now, 8 to 12 business days, that is, doesn't sound like too much. Well, it's actually more than 2 working weeks, and if you're not doing the express search or an urgent search on this, it could be 2 weeks before you can even get a contract, maybe even 3 before you can get a contract of sale for your property. And a lot of owners are going to get caught on this when they go, hey, I bought a house at auction on the weekend, let's rock and roll, and they find out they can't get an offer for 2.5 weeks. So we're going to get this done, and this is again part of what we're proposing to all of our clients. A lot of these places are doing the cheaper rate, are not doing express searches. Owner builder work, so again, there's going to be search to see if there's any owner builder work done on the property, which again, we've had clients that weren't even aware that say 2 owners ago it was done. It just means none of these hiccups come up, but again, it's a government requirement. Dial before you dig, so obviously all the pipes, etc., which we already do anyway. A lot of the stuff we actually do currently, but it needs to be done. A zoning search to make sure the property is zoned as it's being represented. Environmental notices like there's a koala corridor going across, etc., an endangered turtle. All this stuff gets done. Pool safety to see if the pool safe certificate is current, which again, we do a lot of this stuff, but the lawyers have to prepare these now. World Heritage to make sure you're not World Heritage list with, I've never seen any in Brisbane, but if you're up in the Daintree, that's actually something you deal with as an agent. And then finally, the rate search, which is the current rates that the council are charging and where it's up to, and then water charges as well. So again, a lot of these things typically happen. Now, the significance of these searches is important. All these things will be done up front. Now, to give you an idea of the stress on these government departments that we're going to be getting, on average, 70% of properties in Queensland sell that go on the market, so not 100%. Now, 100% of the listings per annum, which is averages around 150,000 across Queensland, every one of them are going to have to do these searches now. I think the poor girls at the titles office and council are about to have a bit of a nervous breakdown. So what we're going to say to all of our clients is we absolutely must get the urgent searches done. I am already hearing from Weldons and other people I'm dealing with that there's already a massive backlog hitting on the standard searches. Now, a lot of these turn around quite quickly, they're 1 or 2 days, but the council one is the big one. That could delay your launching of a campaign, or at least the ability to get an offer, by 2 to 3 weeks. So we've got the costings and we'll throw them up on screen, but I just wanted to explain the actual value behind getting this done by a proper lawyer. So there's some law firms that aren't even charging, inverted commas, for doing this, and they're only doing the at cost of the rates. Now the problem is, it's not a solicitor doing it. It's a first year paralegal working in what we like to call battery chicken law firms, where there's 30 paralegals in their first year of uni, they're not actually lawyers, and you're relying on them to be accurate. And these dry runs we did with other firms, that's the people preparing them. And what I mean by battery chickens is you normally have 20 or 30 non-qualified people doing all the paperwork and a solicitor's walking around and signing off on all of it. You might remember back in the day there was conveyancing works, not on the radio constantly, and that business is no longer around. The reason for it being is that lawyers very quickly worked out that it wasn't actually a lawyer at the other end of the phone or the faxes, and so they started picking fights on every file, on building a pest, etc., because there was no pushback. So we recommend Andrew Weldon Solicitors. The charge for doing all these searches is $440, including GST. So it sounds like a bit more, but to not have to worry to the day of settlement that your buyer might try and use a technicality to terminate, it's a very small investment. In addition to that, if the buyer terminates because of the lawyer's negligence, we're entitled to our commission still, because we've actually done our job. So under the terms of the agency agreement, we can actually get paid if we've obtained an unconditional contract, sold stickers up, because our job's done. We actually can't control the settlement process. And I've said this to all my clients. If you use Andrew Weldon Solicitors, who we recommend, and they did make an error, I, as the principal, would waive our commission. I think that's fair. We've recommended them. If they drop the ball, we wouldn't be seeking that. But I've said to clients, if you want to use the cheaper and not so flash option or reliable option, and they bundle it, I don't think it's fair to expect us to waive our commission because we've actually done our job. And sadly, we actually had a case a few years ago where a vendor's lawyer forgot to turn up the settlement and the buyer used that. Now, the crazy thing is that under this, the buyer gets their deposit back. I think we're going to see a very wild and woolly 3 months ahead. I don't think buyers are going to use this so much to terminate contracts, but I think a lot of lawyers are going to test the waters on this when it first comes in at the day of settlement. So back in 2018, the legal definition of an encumbrance or an easement was changed. So what became non-disclosed or undisclosed encumbrances, things like pipes across the ground, letterboxes penetrating the soil by 10 centimeters, all this became an encumbrance. And World War III broke out for about 2 months, where lawyers at the day of settlement would go, turns out there's a pipe that goes to the house for water, like showers, who would have thought. You didn't disclose that because there was no dial fit for your dig provided, which we provide regardless now. We want 100 grand off or we're not settling. Now, all of the files that I have with good lawyers didn't seem to happen on. The ones that with those typical mass production, conveyancing firms, the lawyers were starting fights left, right, and center, and all of them settled, thank God. None of them had a reduction because we went to bat pretty hard, but it was a lot of stress for no reason. This is a real minefield, and as Weldon's will explain to you, not only can the buyer potentially terminate up to the point of settlement, they can actually say nothing under this new legislation and come back and try and sue you after the fact. And that's more my worry is for my clients is we're done, we're settled, we're all good. And the buyer is gonna sit on that non-compliance from another law firm and then 6 months down the track put a claim in for 100 or 200 grand. So I don't want anybody to have to worry about that at night. So having a good, competent law firm will give you a very smooth run. And at the same time, these guys are specializing in it. I know a lot of law firms that aren't even doing it. They won't take it on because of the liability and the risk involved. So it's crazy, don't get me wrong. It's been a wild couple of weeks getting ready for this. We only got the final draft of this form last week, but we wanted to make sure we protected our client. In regards to buying as well, this is really important for our sellers. We're saying to all of our clients, anything you buy, and the lawyers will tell you this anyway, make it subject to the settlement of your property. Now, a lot of lawyers recommend that regardless anyway, but if the buyer was to get a case of the stupids on the day of settlement and try this on, this will protect you because you can just push the settlement of the place you're looking to buy back, and that will protect you from this side. And the lawyers will advise you that anyway, but that's something, if you're buying a house on a Saturday and you can't get the lawyers on the phone, I'm telling you as a principal, absolutely no way would I buy a house now without a subject to settlement clause in there to protect you from this nonsense. So we're here to protect you and we're here to make this stress-free process. I think you're going to see a lot of distressed vendors over the next few months as the stock starts to normalise, but more importantly, buyers start starting fights or lawyers start starting fights over this. But we've done a tremendous amount of research to enable you to not only get this sorted out, and we manage this process for you, we can help you connect with Weldon's and get everything happening, but having this all sorted and having it turned around in 5 business days or less, it's going to make things a lot easier and a lot less stressful for our owners. If there's anything else we can help out with, any questions you have, or you just like an idea of what your property's worth, reach out. We'd love to be of help. Hopefully this has given you a great insight into what the market's doing currently in Brisbane.